Welcome to the Corporate Learning Network videocast. I'm Jeff Cattell. Today I have with me Chris Malone, co-author of The Human Brand, How We Relate to People, Products, and Companies, and managing partner at Fidelum Partners. Chris will be speaking at this year's Corporate Learning Week, November 12th through the 15th at Disney's Yacht Club Resort in Orlando, Florida. Chris, welcome to the program.
Thanks very much, Jeff. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. So I know that you'll be speaking on the second day of the main conference as the morning keynote, and that day really focuses on soft skills. So can you let our viewers know what you'll be talking about?
Sure. The title of my presentation will be Back to the Future, Achieving Peak Performance in the Digital Age. And the interesting thing about it is why actually achieving peak performance moving forward will be much more about understanding our distant past than it will be about technology moving forward. And so that's what my comments will be about.
Cool. So yeah, one of the things that you're saying is that, or sort of that I was saying, the second day of the conference is really focusing on these soft skills. So when we're thinking from an employee's perspective or employer's perspective or from a learning and training person's perspective, how do you help foster and develop those soft skills in your employees?
Well, one of the first things I think is to understand how humans are perceiving, interacting, and build relationships with one another, and that our soft skills are only one part of the equation. In the work that we've done, we've been able to show that there are actually two parts of that equation whenever we're interacting and collaborating with another person. There is kind of warmth, which you might consider the soft skills side of it, but there's also competence. And the fact that we have sometimes thought of those soft skills as something we could work on in isolation from the competence, I think is where we get a little bit disconnected. And it turns out that the way we interact with each other, is really rooted deeply into our evolutionary past, and that humans, in every interaction, we are assessing one another first on warmth, what are your intentions towards me, and then on competence, what is your ability to carry out those intentions, and that those are so deeply intertwined with one another that we can't really separate them and work on them separately. And so much of what we do in the workplace is focused on the competency side, the skill, the expertise, the task, and accomplishments and so forth. And we need to recognize that our soft skills are deeply intertwined with that, and that we need to work on both of those together.
Yeah, I'm wondering, have you seen a shift in the way that corporate America has looked at soft skills in the past, decade or so? It seems like, as you're mentioning, these competency-based models have been at the forefront for a while. And is that sort of balance shifting at all?
I think what's coming about is, particularly as executives move to higher levels in their career, there's a greater and greater recognition that the soft skills are actually much more predictive of effectiveness and success. And so as much as early in our careers we needed to be competent at achieving certain tasks and handling certain responsibilities, those will only get us so far, and that more often than not, particularly for more senior executives, the challenge comes in on their ability to connect, interact, and form relationships with one another. And so that's why I think soft skills are becoming so much more a focus, but we have thought of them in kind of so separately that we've been missing half the picture.
That makes a lot of sense. Wow, very cool. I know one thing that a lot of companies are dealing with, I'm sure you hear this all the time, is this idea of doing more with less.
Right.
So from your perspective, looking at sort of the soft skills side of things, how does that affect their people and their performance?
Terrific, yeah. So one of the things that we learned in our research is that the way that people, whether they be employees or customers, interact with companies and brands is simply an adaptation of the way we interact with one another as people. And so when we talk about doing more with less, and companies kind of cutting back or downsizing or streamlining, we need to take a look at and understand what is the message that is being sent to employees by that action. We are processing it with the same kind of warmth and competence perceptions that we do all of our other interactions. And very often, the employees are getting the message that the company is seeking to benefit at their expense, and that the company may not care as much about their best interests. So if it's the case that they perceive that the company simply wants to get more done with fewer people so that they can generate greater profit, the employee may perceive that that's not really in their best interest and the company does not have good intentions towards them. On the other hand, if the company takes the time to explain what's happening and point out the upside for employees, perhaps that there is greater opportunity for those employees moving forward because there are fewer people in the organization, or that additional training and development will be provided to help them with additional responsibilities. That can help advance their development as well. And so I think that we always need to be cognizant of the message that we're sending when we're trying to do more with less, and reinforce and explain and demonstrate to employees that we do have their best interests in mind and that we're doing things to demonstrate that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So Keeping on this track, looking at the people part of performance that we've been talking about, what do you think are the things that companies typically overlook in that sort of vein, and how can companies improve upon that?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that we found is that there's kind of tremendous lack of awareness about how the business practices and policies that we implement are coming across. You know, in the business world, reducing staff, managing expenses to manage profit and deliver shareholder value is standard operating procedure. We all recognize that that is, you know, what businesses are expected to do. At the same time, we don't always think about what is the message that's being sent, you know, and very often unintentionally suggests to either customers or employees or other stakeholders that we don't have their best interests in mind if we don't demonstrate that we've taken precautions to protect their best interests. And so in the case that, you know, we've worked with companies that, for instance, have to implement price increases because their costs go up. And if they go to the extent and say, you know, these are things that are out of our control, but look, we've identified these other ways that we can help you save and mitigate those cost increases, whether it's shift to a private label product or a different type of delivery schedule or things of that nature, that message comes across very differently, and that we are demonstrating that we have their best interests in mind, despite that there are some changes that are necessary from a business standpoint. So I think the headline is that becoming more self-aware about how our policies and practices are coming across to our employees and to our other stakeholders is the first step.
Very cool, very cool. All right, well, before I let you go, I want to ask you, what are you most excited about at this year's conference?
Well, actually, I think I'm looking forward to learning more than I'll be even sharing at the conference. There are lots of great speakers. I'm looking forward to hear from speakers from Zappos, which is one of my favorite companies, Google, which I've certainly been very impressed with. There are tremendous other authors going to be there, author of Innovation as Usual and The Blame Game. Both sound like very interesting titles, and so I'm interested to learn just as much as everyone else during Corporate Learning Week.
Awesome. And as you mentioned, yeah, lots of other authors. Everyone will be getting a copy of your book at the event, and also the other authors as well. So people have lots of reading material after leaving the event.
Lots to do on the plane ride home.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Chris. That was Chris Malone, co-author of The Human Brand and a managing partner at Fidelum Partners. For more information on Chris or any of the other speakers at this year's Corporate Learning Week, you can view an agenda by clicking the Download Now button below. Thanks for watching.